I'm Starborn. Remember, to be a star, you have to shine your own light, follow your own path, and not worry about the darkness, because that's when stars shine brightest. If you've been looking at our website, starborninstitute.org, you'd already know that the title of tonight's show is A Careful Accounting. And that's what you might have to be doing for the whole rest of this year. And that is because tonight's show will cover the new moons and the eclipses that are occurring month by month in 2022. And there is a definite reason why you're going to have to be very careful in your accounting and really watch your money this year. And that is because there are 4 eclipses, and they are all in the financial signs. 2 of them are in Taurus, a fixed financial sign ruling how you make your money and what you spend it on. And then another 2 are in Scorpio, also a fixed financial sign, which rules the management of money or money coming from any other source, such as an inheritance or insurance proceeds or grants or loans. It also covers debt and taxes, which you're going to have to pay attention to this year. So because these eclipses are occurring just in the financial signs, that's why you're going to have to do a careful accounting this year, for sure. There is something unusual about these eclipses, though. And it is that the 2 solar eclipses are partial eclipses. And a solar eclipse is when the sun and the moon are together in the same sign, and they always denote a new beginning. But because they are partial eclipses this year, it simply means that when you make a new start, you might want to think of it as doing phase 1, and then a little bit later on trying to do phase 2. Because a new start isn't going to get completely underway smoothly this year. You can start something, but there could be reasons for delays, or it can simply be that you have to sort of wait on other people, or it might be that your budget is a little bit strained and you have to either make more money or save more money before you can continue. So a new beginning is going to get off the ground, but it might do that in steps or phases rather than one big push. Now, in contrast, the lunar eclipses that occur this year are total lunar eclipses. And a total eclipse means, gee, this is the real thing. It's happening right now. And no delays. And so, once again, the lunar eclipses denote, since the moon rules women, denote a change in women's roles this year and a change in things that affect women. There can also be a change in the way that women handle money. Because remember, all of these eclipses are in money signs, in fixed financial signs. So there's that to consider. But the overall concentration on money matters, and why the show is called A Careful Accounting, is because the eclipses are happening in fixed signs, and there are other planets in fixed signs. So every time an eclipse hits, it's sort of coming up against other planets. And that can set up a little bit of resistance or trouble along the way. And one of the things that is happening is that all 4 eclipses are squaring Saturn, a planet of delay, a malefic planet, which is in Aquarius, the sign of the future. Aquarius rules a lot of other things besides the future, though. It rules aviation and the internet and space and electricity and the whole telecommunications field and social media. And so what we see is that every time there's an eclipse, there's pressure on that Saturn in Aquarius, or maybe it's putting pressure on financial matters. And so there is also the possibility that there could be accidents while flying. And when I say accidents, boy, they've got quotation marks around it, because it looks to me like none of them really are accidents. Particularly something that would be happening in space. It could look like an accident, but there's more to that story. And so we do have to be careful, not just in the accounting of our money, but we really have to be a little bit more careful about our own safety. And that is because there can be very strong forces at work. In the financial field, there is the possibility, particularly in the latter part of the year, that there could be some sort of market crash or pullback. And at the same time, as people, particularly people who need investors or they need partners to get a new beginning going, as they're looking around for extra money, it may be very hard to find. There could be a scarcity of investment resources as the year goes on. Now that might be because the economy is faltering. Or if it's not our economy that's faltering, could be a lot of other countries' economies that are faltering. And so we would be affected by that. So you have to look out for that too. And then there is a change in the position of a planet that is directly going to affect Americans. And that is because by August, Mars, which is a very energetic planet, moves into Gemini. Gemini is the rising sign of the United States chart. But Mars is not a friendly planet. Mars rules war. Mars rules aggression, greed, jealousy, and hate. Ooh, and it's coming into a light little air sign like Gemini. Gemini rules youth. There could be a lot more gang warfare this year, but it would be more toward the end of the summer and going on for the rest of the year. Or it can simply be that since Mars is going to stay in the United States ascendant sign until the spring of 2023, from August until I think March of 2023, it just means that we all have to be more conscious of our safety, because Mars can be in a very aggressive planet, and it's really not good for our youth. It's also not good for the communications field, because it's a time when the media could get out of control in one way or another. Or it could be accused of already being out of control and be in a little trouble for that. Particularly if there has been more of an emphasis on propaganda rather than on factual news. So we'll have to see how that plays out in the year ahead. So there are a lot of things that we need to watch out for. And that is why, since all of the eclipses are in the financial signs, we need to be very careful in our accounting. We need to make a careful accounting of everything. I mean, even if you've never budgeted in your life, and even if you're so rich you don't think you have to budget, don't kid yourself. Because there's going to be tax law changes. Well, that really would affect people that have a lot of money. They don't like to pay taxes. But there could also be changes in the price of things. Nobody's brought down inflation. It keeps going up. And as it goes up, and if people in high places simply aren't doing anything about it and aren't stopping it, then sooner or later, as you're doing your careful accounting, you may notice that your money isn't buying as much. Okay, and then that might lead you to conclude that you can't afford things the way you used to. And that would be true. So that's why you need to have a very careful accounting this year. All right, what does this mean in every month this year? Well, in January. Actually, this just happened. On January 2nd, a couple of days ago, there was a new moon at 12 degrees of Capricorn. And there's a lot of planets in Capricorn, and I think Capricorn's ended last year pretty well. But this is what I would call, January, I would call a restructuring month. And that is because the earth signs are really good at redoing things if they have to, or say rebuilding something, or, being a little bit more practical in their expenses and still achieving their goal. They're really good at that, at watching the money and still getting what they want. So I think that January is a month when we're going to be restructuring. And that is because the planets are still very strong in Capricorn, but Mars is moving into Capricorn, and Mars is exalted in Capricorn. It actually works very well in Capricorn. Planets are exalted in their signs when the type of planet it is in is countered by the kind of sign it's in. And so the example of Mars being exalted in Capricorn is Mars is a dynamic, energetic, willful, impulsive planet, that just wants it their way. But when it gets into Capricorn, they say it's exalted because it can't operate like that. Because Capricorn doesn't operate like that. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. Saturn is a slow planet. So Mars is exalted in Capricorn, and that will certainly lead to some constructive changes. And if you have to do some careful accounting, you might find a way to restructure your budget and to restructure some of your expenses and activities so that you can cut down on their cost. And then that's a way of beating inflation, because then if you can cut your costs a little bit, you have a little bit more money to spend on things that have gotten too expensive lately, including food and transportation. So January is going to be a restructuring month when you can sort of set yourself up for doing practical things this year, and maybe understanding that nothing could happen. You really don't want anything to happen too fast, but just let things happen in phases and try to pay as you go. In other words, if you can't quite afford exactly what you want to do, save a little more money until you can afford it, and then go right ahead. Okay, what does it mean in February? Well, in February, on February 1st, there is a new moon at 12 degrees of Aquarius. And that new moon and the sun in Aquarius on February 1st are going to be joining Saturn, which is already in Aquarius. But Saturn is going to be squaring Uranus in Taurus, and so are the sun and the new moon at the same time. Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius, and it has been squaring the sign it rules for a couple of years now, and in fact it's going to stay in that harsh angle until 2025. And so we have to understand that, the way that we want to advance in our future, Aquarius rules the future, is going to be expensive. And we are going to have to find a way either to pay for something, or else we're going to have to live with delays, a little more delay. And so there can be some delays. There can even be the threat of danger in space or some sort of accident, and this could be just in flying. You have to be very careful when you're flying in 2022 because the planes, they're all working with digital technology, and so are the bad guys. They're all working with digital technology too. And so are satellites from space. We do an awful lot with satellites. The whole telecommunications field is governed by satellites. And so there's a lot going on up there that we can't see, but we'd better be conscious of understanding that there can be delays, or there can be sort of funny business going on. And what would be the reason for it all? Money. There are people that want the money. And money is going to be on a lot of people's minds this year because the 4 eclipses are all in the money signs. Okay, what does it mean in March? Well, in March, on March 1st, there is a new moon at 12 degrees of Pisces. And this is what I call a breakthrough month. And that is because there's so many good planets in Pisces. Remember, Jupiter has gone into Pisces. It did that in the last days of December 28th actually. It went into Pisces and joined Neptune, the ruler of the sign in Pisces. Both of them are there. And that simply means that there's a lot of information that can be pouring out from behind the scenes. And this could be information, the reason this is a breakthrough month is because there could be a lot of information that what I would call old news. In other words, there's information that comes out now that provides proof of something we've known for a long time. But now we've got the proof of it. And it could be just pouring out in March. And that would lead to justice being done because the planets in Pisces, including the sun and new moon that are going to be there, are all trining the sign of Scorpio, which does rule justice. And also it's very good for America because those planets trine the sign of Cancer as well. So it will be until March that we will be spending our time sort of getting our acts together a little bit. But by March, there is the possibility of a partnership that comes along, a partnership possibility for anybody, so it could be for you. And it comes along and it is so quiet and it happens so naturally that it just is there. And it doesn't make waves, it doesn't cause talk, nothing. It's just something that is so natural, some partnership that was sort of meant to be. But it's very low key. It doesn't arouse curiosity or interest, and it's happening just so naturally that it is. It's just quietly nice. And so that could represent somebody very nice coming into your life, but they're not coming with a bang. They're just there, and they're just really just perfect for you. And so I don't know if it's somebody who's going to be a partner and a good friend, or if they're going to be a partner and do something in a business with you, or just be the kind of partner that really pleases your emotions and makes you happy and could lead to something more permanent. But that certainly is possible in March. It's just not a lot of people would see it because it's just low-key and sort of natural. There's nothing going wrong with it, and there's no reason for delay. It's just pretty nice, pretty easygoing. So that would be very nice, a breakthrough month. And remember, this could happen at any level in your life. So, I mean, it sounds like it would make a nice romance or something more, but it actually could make a nice business partnership. It could make just a nice classmate if you're taking classes together, or a nice neighbor. But these people sort of, they've always been around. It's just in March, finally, something quite natural is going to happen and bring some nice people together, which would be great. Okay, what does it mean in April? Well, in April, we have something different going on. There are 2 new moons in April. And how could that be? It's because the moon takes 28 days to get through one sign. And so if there is a new moon that occurs, say, on the first day of the month, then there's going to be another new moon at the end of the month. And that's what's happening in April. So on April 1st, there is a new, no, is it April 1st? Second, first, yeah, April 1st, there is a new moon at 12 degrees of Aries. And Aries rules new beginnings. So, oh boy, even if you find a perfect partner, you'd certainly want to do something new with them. And so that could sort of get you going in a new direction. It might be also that it's the timing. It's the winter is over, spring is here, and people can start thinking about making their summer plans, or things can be just a little easier to live with. It's hard. The winter weather is hard on everybody. But now by April 1, under this new moon in Aries, there can be some new beginnings. So it's a little bit like sort of putting out your feelers, seeing who else is interested in whatever you're interested in. Or it can be that you feel like meeting some new people. Or it can certainly be that you feel like making a new beginning. But remember what I said. The 2 solar eclipses this year are only partial eclipses. And a solar eclipse always denotes a new beginning. But it's going to be a partial one. And that doesn't mean it stops. It just means it's like phase 1 you got to do, and then maybe you have to save a little money before you can do phase 2 as well. But you can succeed that way, as long as you don't want to do the whole thing all at once. That I don't think would work. Now, it isn't for lack of energy, or it isn't because you don't have good ideas. It is because sooner or later you have to depend on other people. And you do not exactly know that their schedules are going to mesh with yours. And it could be that there's other priorities that they have. And so you have to learn to sort of expect a little bit of delay and work in just phases of something new. But you could do that. And it does allow you to be a little bit more careful with your accounting. If you're going a little bit slower, you can sort of reconcile your books as one phase finishes and the next one begins. You can be a little bit more careful with the figures. I'm not sure why it's going to be so important for you to be very careful with whatever you're doing with money this year, but it will be. The only thing that I can think of, reason why it would be so important, is if the economic conditions change drastically. And if at a moment's notice, if there was some sort of crash, you would have to know where you stand right away. And that's why it's pretty good this year if just even once a month you can make a practice of sitting down and saying, okay, what am I doing with my money? Or who else is handling this money? Or how much are the bills? And you sort of kept on top of it. That would be a good idea. And because that way you know when you can go forward and when you have to sort of stand back a little bit and wait to save more money. Or it may be that as you're getting closer to looking at your money and being more accountable, you can find ways to cut costs. And that will give you a little bit more disposable income. And that's you might just need that this year, so it's a good idea for you to have. However, remember I said there are 2 new moons in April. The second one occurs on April 30th at the end of the month, and this one is a solar eclipse. So on April 30th, there is a solar eclipse at 10 degrees of Taurus. And remember, Taurus is a fixed financial sign, and it's a solar eclipse, and it's a partial solar eclipse. So yes, you can go forward, and by the start or the end of April, you could be getting ready to, sort of put things in gear and get going. But because it's a partial eclipse, you can get some things going, but I don't think you can get the whole thing going. And And once again, it could be due to situations beyond your control. And that's why you have to cultivate a little bit of patience. At the same time, remember that the month of April is the month when everyone has to pay taxes. And so maybe just paying the taxes is going to stop your goal for a while. Maybe you've got to put the money on the tax bill instead of a new beginning. So there could be that possibility. But at the same time, as this solar eclipse, partial solar eclipse, is underway on April 30th, that means that the sun and the exalted moon, because it's exalted in Taurus, and Uranus, the planet of sudden surprising change and volatility, are all squaring Saturn in Aquarius, the sign of the future. So the emphasis is on money. Probably you would be concerned with making more money, or perhaps selling some of your investments to pay off your bills. You could do that. Or it can be that you have saved enough money and you've been looking around for a good investment, and maybe you find it, but maybe it's not in the best shape, so you could afford to buy it, but you couldn't quite afford to fix it yet. But that's all right. Remember, these solar eclipses let you do things in phases this year. And Taurus is a fixed financial sign, but it is being squared by other planets in other fixed signs. So you just have to be a little bit careful what you do. And if you're planning for the future, the best way, even if there are delays, to make sure that a dream or a goal comes true is keep putting the money away for it. Keep saving. And that way, if later on in the year there is some sort of market correction, or there is a softness in all the economies for one reason or another, then even if you haven't saved enough for your dream goal, you might have saved enough to make a good investment anyway if the price comes down. And if it comes down, you might be in a perfect spot to take advantage of that. And remember, it's not all due to you. There are conditions that you are dependent upon in other areas of your life. But if you keep saving and the prices fall, you are going to be in a great position to buy. And you might make a nice investment that way. So you could think about that. Okay, what does it mean in May? Well, on May 30th, there is another eclipse, because there are 2 eclipses in the spring and then there's 2 in the fall. So, no, it's May 16th, I'm sorry. On May 16th, there is a total lunar eclipse at 25 degrees of Scorpio. And that's the other fixed financial sign. So we know in a lunar eclipse, it's a full moon. So the sun and the moon are opposing each other. And this is a total lunar eclipse, just like the other one is going to be in the fall. And so it simply means that there can be a real change for people who have been skirting justice. In other words, they've been going along, sort of sliding through life, and, maybe they've been cutting some corners and not exactly telling the truth, and everybody knows what they've been doing, but they haven't been punished or anything, or they haven't been caught, they haven't been held accountable. But that could happen now. And if there is a woman who is going to be held accountable for things that were not legal that she did in the past, then she would certainly stand to lose a lot of money. Simply because she'd probably have to go to court, that's expensive, and if she goes to jail, she's out of a job. So there is the possibility that that could happen. And it could happen anywhere in the world. It wouldn't necessarily have to happen here. But if it did happen here, it would be something that would be very good for America. sort of like, okay, we mean business here. Or everybody has to follow the same rules. You know, we all have to play by the same rules. That would be the lesson from all of this. Because the total lunar eclipse in Scorpio is being beautifully trined by the planets in Pisces. And together, these planets also trine the sign of Cancer, which is America's sun sign. So it's going to be really good for America. But I would say that somebody is going to, and it could be a woman, it could be more than one woman, is certainly going to not be able to withstand, they say the wheels of justice grind slowly. Well, they're going to grind right down to whoever this person is, and then they will have to pay for what they've gotten away with. Okay, and so this is important for you to realize that in a lunar eclipse, since the moon rules women, something around the time of the lunar eclipse, which is the middle of May, it's May 16th, something could be announced or be done that would have an effect on all women. Remember, the roles of women changed this year. Or maybe it's the rules about what women can do change. I don't know. I mean, I don't make those rules, so I don't know about that. But something involving perhaps a lot of women is going to change. And one of the things that is connected to, besides the role that women play, is their finances. Because we cannot forget that throughout the whole year, the only eclipses are in financial signs. That's why you have to keep doing a careful accounting of where you stand financially. Because not all of these eclipses are, you know, going to benefit you. They could trigger changes that mean that you have to be really careful with your own money or watch your own money more closely. Okay, so that in the middle of May, that whatever it is that is represented by that total lunar eclipse in Scorpio would represent some sort of justice being done, but it also represents a change in the way women work in one way or another, or in their activities. And the change could originate then. It may not take effect till later on in the year. Or it could just absolutely take effect right away. Okay. What does it mean in June? Let me see. Okay, on June, no, May 30th. I'm sorry. I should get a teleprompter. I really need one of those. On May 30th, there is a new moon. Remember, the new moons now are going to be at the ends of months. Remember, they started out in January, 2 days ago, on January 2nd. But now they're all going to be at the ends of months for the rest of the year. And so on May 30th, there is a new moon. And it is at 9 degrees of Gemini. And it's good for Gemini. I mean, the sun and the moon are in Gemini, and that's nice. It once again says that people who are lying or people who have been evading the truth one way or another are going to have to face it instead, because the planets in Pisces square this new moon in Gemini. So they're sort of harshly aspecting that new moon in Gemini. And the thing to understand is that Gemini rules youth. It rules the telecommunications field. It rules certainly social media. Just Aquarius rules social media equipment, like the internet and computers. But Gemini certainly rules conversation. It rules marketing, buying and selling, advertising. It rules anything that brings people together in a temporary way, excuse me, or a part-time way. And it rules all short forms of education and training like vocational schools, 2-year colleges, or it can rule the kind of education that involves makeup courses. And what I think under this new moon, which is at the end of May, and so that's right when school is going to be out, and there will be graduations at a higher level in colleges. But I think that this is a summer when an awful lot of students are going to have to go to summer school. And I don't think they're actually going to like that, but they'll have to do it in order to make up for the times when the schools were locked down and, sitting at home watching your computer for 8 hours. That didn't do much for a kid's education. In fact, it was a failing. Maybe it was the only thing that the schools could think of, but it failed. So they got the bad grade on that one. And now the students have to make it up. The students are still want to get jobs. They still want to go on to college. And so I think a lot of students are going to get stuck in summer school. But if it helps them get to the next step higher, if it helps them get into college, if it helps them get to a vocational training course where they can get a better job, that would be great. And if it kept them out of gangs. Even summer school is better than gangs. And so that's what I think is going to be happening under this particular new moon. And it will affect all communicators in one way or another. And so, it might be around this time, at the beginning of summer, when the media becomes much more accountable for the way they have presented their information. And why would they have to suddenly become accountable? It's because they're losing revenues. Remember, this whole year is about money. And if you lose enough revenue, then no matter how great some reporter thinks they are, they're going to be out of a job. So there will be consolidations and mergers, and that will put some people out of work. But it might be the people that were just making it up as they go along anyway. That may not be a loss. Because the American public deserves the truth, and it doesn't need to be interpreted. It just needs to be factual. So that could be a change as well. The reason why I'm bringing all this up about Gemini is that Mars goes into Gemini in August, at the end of the summer. And it never leaves for the rest of the year. And as it goes into Gemini, it will quickly come up to the 7th degree of Gemini, and that is the exact degree of the United States ascendant. It is also a degree that has no meaning. It's the only degree that has no meaning. That's why nobody understands Americans, I think, including us. But as Mars is going over the U.S. ascendant and staying in that sign clear until next March, so from August until March of 2023, it does not bode well for the way we see ourselves. Your ascendant is always your own special star. It's how you look. It's how you act. People don't look like their sun signs. Well, they might, a little bit, but they really look like their ascendant. And so we're going to have Mars there. Mars in the sign of youth means that there's going to be a lot more gang warfare. That's another reason why you have to be real accountable for what you've got and keep a close eye on it, because there could be increased crime. So anyway, there's a lot going on, and once that new moon in Gemini begins, and people are making their summer plans, by the end of the summer, we could be somewhat dismayed by something boiling over and being out of control. And it might be young people. It could happen in our neighborhoods. Gemini rules neighborhoods. And to anybody who is a Gemini, you're going to be super busy from August and for the whole rest of the year. You will be so busy, you can't even anticipate how busy you'll be by then. Okay, what does it mean in June? Well, in June, on June 29th, there is a new moon at 7 degrees of Cancer. Now this is very good because it's right before our July 4th birthday. So that new moon is pretty close to the American sun. And so it means we could have a good 4th of July holiday, which would be great. And also, once again, we find out a lot more truth about things that have been going on behind the scenes, but it could be things that we always thought we knew, or, you know, that nobody was hiding too much because a lot of people knew about it, they just didn't do anything about it. But that new moon in Cancer at 7 degrees of Cancer is being trined by that Jupiter in Pisces and by Neptune in Pisces. That's where all the information is going to be coming out from. Pisces rules things that are hidden behind the scenes. It rules secrets. A lot of secrets going to be coming out. And so that's good for America. And it's also good for the things that we cherish. As docile and as good as we have been at following the rules during the pandemic, a lot of people got tired of what they were doing, even if they kept following the rules and directions. And so there might be a backlash. There may be a way when people are spending the summer thinking about what they want to change or what they do not want to go back to. So it's good for America, this new moon in Cancer. It means that America may be able to find a way to bring a lot of people together and a way to unite. Wouldn't that be a change? And it would be something where we sort of want to stick close to home. And that would be good, because if you're sticking close to home, you're not up in a spaceship having something go wrong. Now, I think space travel is cool, but there are bad actors up there in space as well. And as far as I know, nobody has thought of protecting what we're doing in space, but we really have to do that. So space tourism is exciting and it's on the rise, but is there any protection? I mean, what if something happens up there? What's the protection? And the word protection implies an enemy. And there might be enemies in space now, or certainly this year, coming this year. And we need to think a little bit more about self-defense if we're going to be space tourists. And that is cool, but you know, you want to come back down too, in one piece. Okay, what does it mean in July? Well, on July 27th, I think it's July 26th, there is a new moon at 6 degrees of Leo. And Leo is a fixed sign. It's the sign that rules children and parties and love affairs and sports and glamour and entertainment and leadership. And so the sun and the moon will be there in Leo at 6 degrees, so they'll have a long way to go as they go through the sign. That'll be nice. That could certainly indicate a lot of summer fun and maybe good weather. And hopefully not so many wildfires. But so that's good. It's just that Leo is a fixed sign. And that means that new moon and that sun in Leo are coming up, are being squared by Uranus in Taurus, because that Uranus isn't moving for years. And it's being opposed by Saturn in Aquarius, which also isn't moving for a long time. So there can be a sort of a clash with people who want to forge ahead and are leaders and have a lot of confidence in themselves and just want to get out there and make a new beginning, and that would be great. And it's in the summer months, which is when Jupiter leaves Pisces and goes into Aries, so it's trining the planets in Aries, but it's really meeting resistance among Saturn, with Saturn in Aquarius opposing it and Uranus in Taurus squaring it. That means that no matter what you want to do then, it's going to cost more than you think. And that's because that Uranus is involved. And Uranus rules the New York, or Uranus is in Taurus, and Taurus rules the New York Stock Exchange. And there are some investments that might be, I think the word is frothy. It might be that they're a little overvalued. And as the summer goes on, people are beginning to realize that, okay, there's something wrong here. They're overvalued. And also, there is the possibility that you have two choices. Either pay a higher price for something, because inflation will still be with us, or save your money and sort of cut your lifestyle down a little bit. That may not be so much fun. But I really urge you this summer to try to think of as many ways that you can have fun without spending a lot of money. That would be so good for you and for everybody else. We have to rest after this pandemic. And resting means just go to the beach. Nothing wrong with that. And just have fun. And hot dogs don't cost that much. You can barbecue them and have marshmallows and s'mores as well. So this could be a summer that you could make it through and have a lot of fun and enjoy yourself and not spend too much money. But what if you did want to do something that cost a lot of money? I would advise you not to do it. And the reason why is either you're going to pay for something that is, say, frothy, that is overvalued, and so you'd be paying too much. You wouldn't be getting your money's worth. Or else you wouldn't have enough savings, and that could make you want to use your savings and go into debt to pay a high price for something. Where would that get you? That would get you deeper in debt, but it wouldn't really help the bottom line. It wouldn't enhance your own worth. It just means you're paying too much for something. It doesn't mean it's worth it. And so you need to be a little bit careful. The 6th degree of Leo, where this new moon is 6 is the number of Venus. And 6 is the number of love and of being well balanced and taking responsibility for others. There could be a lot of weddings around the time of the new moon in Leo. And they would go quite well. They would be nice. And they may be just summer weddings in somebody's backyard when all the flowers are blooming and the weather is great. And I just think people would love it. That would not cost a lot of money. So we have to just say, okay, 2022 is a year when we have to do a lot of careful accounting and keep our expenses low so we can save more money. And if you have high debt, keep your expenses low so that you can pay off your debt. Or if you don't have debt, keep saving the money, because as we continue on into the fall, there may be some change in the value of things, sort of a lowering or a dropping of values, even the possibility of a recession. And if that happens and you've saved enough money, you may be able to take advantage of something that you always wanted, but at a lower price, one you really could afford. So that would be sort of nice. Okay, what does it mean in August? Well, in August, on August 27th, there is a new moon at 4 degrees of Virgo. And Virgos are very organized and they're very efficient, and it rules accounting, and so they like to add things up and make sure that that information is verified. It's sort of some sort of cross-check system that means that they're on, that they haven't made a mistake. So they like to do things like that. But it would be very easy to be fooled by the end of August. Okay, that's the end of the summer. That's right before school starts again. And it would be easy to be fooled because that Sun and New Moon in Virgo are going to be opposing planets in Pisces. And that simply means that somebody could be putting on a good show for you. But are you sure it's true? You would have to sort of check and make sure that all the wonderful things that you love to hear are actually fact and not fiction, because they might be. And at the same time, that new moon in Virgo is being squared by that Mars, which isn't leaving Gemini for the rest of the year. So, I mean, somebody could be talking out of the side of their mouth, sort of saying things that aren't quite all true. Or they could just be outright lying, trying maybe even to swindle you. I wouldn't be buying too much at that time, because you may not know who to trust. And you could be a very trusting person, but you may not find too many other people to talk to that you can trust. And so stick to your old friends, the people that you know the best. And that is a period of time when it is possible that there may be some sort of correction in the market by the end of the summer. And so you would want to be a little bit careful about, if you're doing a careful accounting of your investments, I would, all summer long, just once a month, I'd check things out. That might be more than often than you've done that before, but it would be worth it. So I hope you do that. Okay, what does it mean in September? Oh, well, on September 25th, there is a new moon at 3 degrees of Libra. And this new moon is sort of a fortifying new moon. I mean, it can make you stronger. And the reason why is that the Sun and the new moon in Libra are being trined by that Saturn in Aquarius. So if there is some problem in space, maybe we'll figure that out and get an answer by then. Because there is a partnership somewhere around, a Libra rules partnership, that could turn out quite well. And I think it might turn out quite well because there isn't so much of a problem with the money. The only time people are not going to get along at all this year is in financial affairs. The financial affairs are going to be sticky this year. That's why you need to do a careful accounting. But if you were thinking of forming a partnership under this new moon in Libra, which rules partnership, with somebody else where you were somewhat financially secure and so were they, and then you sort of had proof of it, that would be a pretty good partnership. I would do that if I were you. The reason why is that none of us is perfect. So it helps to have a partner. It helps to have somebody that may have talent in an area that you don't have talent in. And so that makes for compatibility. You can appreciate them for things they do well, and they can appreciate you for things you do well, but those are different things, so that you complement each other. That's a nice partnership. And so it is possible to sort of come up with one like that in the fall. And that would, it might be somebody that you already know, or it might be somebody that you just met, but you could meet somebody very nice this fall. And that Mars in Gemini that is going to cause problems for the country, I think through gang warfare, for sure. that Mars in Gemini is trining this new moon in Libra. So, I mean, that person that might make a very good partner could be somebody in your neighborhood, or could be somebody you grew up with. Now, they could be a little closer than you realize. And so try to look for that this year. That would be pretty nice for you. And it is, I think, easier to go through life with a partner. Easier than without one. Because nobody can do everything by themselves. They really can't. So independence is wonderful, and freedom is wonderful. But if you have the right partner, you can have some independence and freedom and still have a partner. So, in fact, that might make a really good partnership where you each are respectful of the other's choices. Okay, so what does it mean in October? Well, in October, on October 25th, we begin the coming into the winter or the late fall eclipses. And so on October 25th, we have a solar eclipse. And remember, the solar eclipses are going to be partial ones. So we have a solar eclipse partial at 2 degrees of Scorpio on October 25th. And Scorpio is a fixed financial sign, but remember, it rules money coming in from any other source. So it rules inheritance, insurance proceeds, loans, credit, taxes, and grants, and so it rules. Scorpio really rules money management, and Taurus, which is the other financial sign, rules how you make the money. And Scorpio rules how you manage the money. And so this is a partial solar eclipse, meaning that the sun and the moon are both in Scorpio. But they're opposing that volatile Uranus in Taurus. And they're being squared by Saturn in Aquarius. So the future is looking a little iffy. And what's iffy about it is it might be that if you're thinking of, say you've made it through phase 1 of a new beginning, but now you want to get to phase 2, you may not know if you have enough money to do that. And the idea is not to go into debt to do something, not this year, because it's a little bit like putting a noose around your neck. You do not know when the bottom is going to fall out of something and leave you sort of hanging there with all this debt. That's why you don't want debt. Debt is, they say that debt is a good investment. For whom? You still owe the bill. And so if you are a person who is looking for extra money for a phase 2 of a new beginning that you want to make this year, I would say that there may be a scarcity of investment resources at that time. And so that would be a little bit later on in the fall. And it can be that people are getting a little shaky about the value of things. Maybe they're a little frothy, a little overvalued. And so there is even the possibility of a recession in the second half of this year. And if that happens, then you're not going to be able to find as many people that can be interested in investing in your new beginning. Scarcity of investor resources. And so I think that is what that, I think that by then, since it's a solar eclipse, and we know it's a partial one, so you have to divide up your goals into certain steps. You may have to divide them a little more finely at that time. Maybe just do a little less than you want to do. But at least you'd be still making progress. So just do what you can afford. And if you can't find an investor that wants to go in with you at that time, I would still continue having good relations with these people because the economic situation could turn around at a later date, and maybe they would have some money that they'd like to invest later on. So it's a sort of a delicate balance between what you can afford and what they can afford. And all I'm saying is I think it's a little scarce on their side at that time. So you have to rely a little bit more on your own financial resources this year. One way to do that is that you may want to sell something that you hadn't thought of selling before, but if that's the only way you can raise some money to do something that you're really sincere about, then maybe you should think about that and do that. Okay, what does it mean in November? Well, in November, ooh, that's a loaded month, because on November 8th, Election Day, when we're all going to the voting booth or doing what we have to get those votes in on Election Day, there is a total lunar eclipse at 16 degrees of Taurus. And remember, since it's a total lunar eclipse, it's a real change for a woman. I mean, from one who was very, very active to being out of it. And so this is a time when something is winding up for women who may have decided even at the end of this last year, 2021, that they wanted to scale back, or they wanted to relinquish some of their duties, or they just wanted to retire. Maybe that's what they want to do. It may have taken a whole year for them to get all of their finances together, being carefully accountable this year. And so it can be by November, right around Election Day, that their change from being active to being in a more passive role is complete. And so it's a total lunar eclipse. And so I would say, since it's in Taurus, it means that a wealthy woman leaves. And she either leaves right then, or she's got it planned, and it's still going to happen. It'll happen in the future. But she leaves. And so her role changes. And that's a specific example of what I mean all year long for the roles of women. The roles of women under these total lunar eclipses are going to change. And different women have different reasons for what they want to do. And it may not be all in their hands. It could be that the laws change. Or it could be that schedules change. Or it could be that employers go out of business or they merge with others. I mean, there's so many different ways that a person's role could change this year. Gemini rules change. But remember, Mars is in Gemini from August throughout the rest of this year and until March of 2023. And so, since Gemini does rule change, there can be some swift or abrupt or even cruel change going on. Certainly among the gangs, it's going to be brutal. But that change could happen at any level, and particularly among women, since both of the lunar eclipses are total. Now, last year they weren't total. This year they are. So we have to be aware of these things. It doesn't mean that all of these things are going to be happening to you or to me, I hope not. But if we don't stay on top of our own lives and in control of ourselves, there is the possibility this year that others will try to control us instead. And if they keep trying to control us, how long do you think an American is going to take that? Americans like their independence. We made a country for that, and this is that country. So you know, if people's roles change, if we're somehow able to meet in the middle a little bit more, if we can form easy partnerships and just take things one phase at a time, then, you know, if you do all that, you're going to have a pretty good year. But you have to be aware that it's all about money the whole year, since all of the eclipses are in the financial signs. Okay, so then 2 weeks later, after the total lunar eclipse on November 8th, which is also election day, 2 weeks later, there is a new moon. And that new moon is on November 23rd, and it is at 3 degrees of Sagittarius. And that's right around Thanksgiving. And so there is the possibility that you could be thinking about traveling, since Sagittarius does rule long-distance travel. But it also rules the courts, and it rules higher education. And, you know, if nothing else, Mars in Gemini is a real wake-up call to everybody in America that we have to get our education act together. It has fallen apart. And so it could be doing that in several different ways in a lot of different places, but it's all over America. And so we're going to have to redo things here and to sort of get our kids up to where they can be wonderful citizens and smart ones. You know, it isn't the kids that are dumb. It's the policies. The policies are not they're not collaborative. They're not getting a little bit of input here and a little bit of input there and listening to another group here. Policies are not being made like that, where everybody has a little voice, a little what they call skin in the game. No, policies are being made by somebody who says, you know, that they have the only right to make a policy, so we all have to follow it. Oh, gee, go back to where you came from. We don't work like that. We try to do what is good for the greater good and for the common good. Gemini is a common sign. You know, Americans like easy conversation. They like young people. They like just doing everyday things, which we spend a lot of our free time doing because that's important to us when we're not working. And, you know, sort of relax. But that doesn't mean we like people telling us what to do. We know what we're doing. This is a very hard-working country. A lot of people who think that they want to come to America because the streets are paved with gold. Oh boy, I've never seen a street like that, have you? They don't realize how hard Americans work until they get here and they find out there's no easy ride anywhere. You have to work for what you want. Well, that can give you pride, that can give you confidence, and that can do a lot for your family and the next generation and the generation after that. So nothing wrong with that. Okay, so let's finish this off. What does it mean in December? Well, in December, on December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas, there is a new moon, and it is at 3 degrees of Capricorn. Now that's exactly where we started at the start of this program, because we were talking about the first new moon this year, which happened a couple of days ago, and it was in Capricorn. And remember, I said I felt that that meant that the month of January was a restructuring month. Well, now here we are in December, 2 days before Christmas, with a new moon at 3 degrees of Capricorn. And so I want to conclude the program by saying that I think it might take you clear until next Christmas. But the restructuring that you are beginning now in your life by being so carefully accountable, that restructuring will be complete by this next Christmas. By the new moon in Capricorn, December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas, your restructuring will be complete. So actually, it's like going full circle. Whatever you're thinking about now, and this is January of 2022, I believe no matter how many changes or restructuring or little phases that you have to go through and steps to reach your goals, that will all be complete by Christmas. And we'll still have to contend with Mars still being in Gemini, causing problems for America. But as far as being practical goes, when I say restructuring, and I'm talking about new moons in the earth signs, I mean that involves work. And that involves your job, that involves your health, that involves your investments, that involves any practical problems, such as the high cost of living. That's probably the number one goal that unites all of us. We all are victims of inflation, and we have to figure out how we can circumvent the high cost of living right now, without feeling that we're continually getting poorer. Well, it's going to take some clever accounting for you to figure out how to do that. But I think that you can. So good luck. And thanks again for tuning in. You can see the show and read our blog on our website, starborninstitute.org. And or you can subscribe to see the show on my Karen Campbell YouTube channel, or you can tell your friends about that. And I'd be happy to send you the show every week. Next week's show will cover the sun sign predictions for all of 2022 for each sun sign. So I'll see you then. Bye.